Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Game Day Show. I'm Ethan Bass, your host, and this is your source for college football entertainment. So, it's been a while since we have last met, and college football season has been rolling through. There's been a lot of upsets, a lot of surprises in the 2021 college football season, and I'm sorry we have not covered that, but truly, I have been taking a break through YouTube and focusing myself on school and other things around my life. But I think we're going to get back to YouTube as the season rewinds when we have 1 month left in the college football season. Things have been going crazy so far in the world of college football. Of course, we have the scandal between Florida Gators, what's going on with them, Dan Mullen. We have the surprises like Michigan State. We have Georgia rolling through. Alabama is rolling, but they do have some loss on their schedule against A&M. Crazy college football season. We have a lot of people that control their own destiny. Cincinnati, I do not think is one of those teams. Crazy situation going on right there. Auburn's a team. We're going to talk about Auburn later in the show. So we have a lot of things to talk about today in the world of college football. We're just going to talk about what's going on November 3rd. 2021. Just forget everything that happened in the past. Of course, we're going to talk about the past, but we're going to talk about what's going on today. We're going to talk about the college football rankings, a couple other teams going on there. So let's get rolling. We're going to continue with our edits soon, and hopefully the pod will be back up in the next couple of weeks. All right, guys, let's do it. All right, so as we all know, the CFB rankings, the playoff rankings came out last night, November the 2nd. There's a lot of more notable factors here. I'm going to go over that right now before we do team by team. This is the first edition of the rankings. We do have 1 month left in the college football season, so there's still a lot to play for here. But I think the most notable thing of the first set of the rankings is that Ohio State is being slotted behind Oregon. Now, we know that the head-to-head matchup of Oregon beating Ohio State, that is a primary factor why this is right now. But Ohio State is playing good football right now. But the thing I'm confused about is Oregon did lose to a pretty bad Stanford team. So why are they still ranked as the number 4 team in the country? I'm not sure about that. But it wasn't good tonight for the Pac-12 and Oregon's loss. So there's a lot of things going on with the Pac-12 and Oregon right there that I'm still pretty confused about. Ohio State, I think, does have the better strength of schedule, though, so that should be pretty interesting as we go on. Also, Cincinnati, even though they are 8-0, they are slotted at number 6. That is very interesting. I think Desmond Ridder has played pretty good ball over these couple weeks, but they are, I guess, struggling over a couple of the teams that they shouldn't have been. A couple of the lower-ranked teams. The strength of schedule, Cincinnati's is not the best currently, but Cincinnati is undefeated. I think if this is the year that not a Power 5 team gets in, I think it will be Cincinnati. Cincinnati did beat Notre Dame. I think that's the most notable win, but Notre Dame, I think, is overrated this year. Even though they're 7-1, ranked number 10, I think they're overrated. All right, let's go. Let's go by team, and let's discuss these rankings. Georgia, number 1. Clear favorite of why I think Georgia should be number 1. They just beat a Florida team. They've been beating teams. They beat Kentucky. They blew out Arkansas. So Georgia's defense is unstoppable. I think Georgia has the best defense in all college football. Their offense does have some questions. Are we seeing Stetson Bennett? Are we seeing J.T. Daniels? For Georgia, they do have some questions. Alabama at number 2. This is a very interesting one. So they did lose to Texas A&M a couple weeks ago. And this was pretty big upset. So we all thought Alabama was not vulnerable. They almost got upset by Florida in week 3, and then they got upset by A&M a couple weeks ago. So that was a pretty big win by A&M. We'll talk about them a little later. But Alabama with their new quarterback into place, Bryce Young, has been playing pretty good recently. I think Alabama's defense does need a little more improvement though. But Alabama has looked good. I think Alabama-Georgia in the SEC championship game could be a set matchup, but we'll talk about Auburn later. Michigan State, wonderful Michigan State. Love it to see there. Mel Tucker has transformed that year 2 in the program. Love what they're doing down there. Michigan State just beat Michigan in a shootout, but the refs, I think, sucked in that Michigan game, so I think Michigan could have won it. But Michigan State, what a story. Second year in Mel Tucker's program. Great to see. Oregon, we already talked about Oregon, but we'll talk about them again. We know that Oregon lost to Stanford. They beat Ohio State. But let's say Ohio State beat Oregon there. Are we even looking at Oregon being in the top 10 because they lost to Stanford? But they did get that notable win over Ohio State. Ohio State ranked number 5th in the country. Love what they've seen there. I think they have the best offense, probably in college football with CJ Stroud in there. Love what they're seeing. Cincinnati, most interesting pick. Why they ranked number 6. I don't think they have a strength schedule. They also have to be blowing out teams in order to be able to be ranked higher. They haven't really blown out teams in the past couple weeks. So Cincinnati's a really interesting pick. I'm rooting for them. I love the underdog. Cincinnati with Desmond Ridder and Luke Finkel. Love it there. I really hope they get it done. Michigan at 7. Now this is interesting just because they lost to Michigan State last weekend. We all know what's going on there with Jim Harbaugh. I think the real hurdle right there is them beating Ohio State. If they don't beat Ohio State, their season's ruined. So they really have to beat Ohio State. Number 8, I'm really loving Oklahoma there at number 8. Oklahoma is undefeated, but they have a couple quarterback questions in Caleb Williams or Spencer Rattler. Rattler was the Heisman favorite. He was supposed to win the Heisman. He is clearly not showing that, so Caleb Williams steps up and he gets it done. So at number 9, we got Wake. Now, Wake is very interesting just because they are an ACC team. They're only undefeated ACC team. But the ACC itself is not the best right now. They obviously have Clemson, who's ass right now. Florida State's complete ass. Miami's complete ass. So Pitt just lost. They're supposed to be here. Wake Forest, I think, if they still go undefeated and they win the ACC, I think it's going to be the first time ever in the playoff that Wake Forest will not get in as an undefeated Power 5 champ. Just because their schedule is complete ass. The ACC is complete ass this year. At least that's my opinion. And rounding out the top 10, we have Notre Dame. Notre Dame has looked very overrated. We saw that at the beginning of the season when they almost lost to FSU, terrible FSU team this year. But I just don't like Notre Dame this year. I don't like their offense. I think their defense is all right. I am a fan of one of their wide receivers who went to our high school, Kevin Austin, who went to North Ballard. Shout out to him. But I'm just not liking Notre Dame this year. They did lose early in the season. Not liking that right there. But I think that if they can overcome, they can at least make a New Year's Day bowl game. All right, let's move on to number 11, Oklahoma State. They did lose to Iowa State earlier in the season. So far, they look pretty good, but I just don't see Oklahoma State making the playoff. I mean, they could make a New Year's Day bowl as a New Year's Day champ. They could beat Oklahoma in the future, but I don't know. I just don't see Oklahoma State being in the playoff. Baylor. Oh, my God. How is Baylor ranked number 12? Baylor has played pretty good this season. They only lost one game, so I'm pretty proud of Baylor. What's going on? They lost to Oklahoma State. What a shootout that was, 24-14 on October 2nd. Great game that was. But Baylor has looked pretty good this year. I like Baylor's. Sorry. All right, Auburn. Auburn is interesting. Auburn technically controls their own destiny. They play at A&M this weekend. That's going to be a huge game. Then they play Alabama. Now, if they beat A&M this weekend, they take care of business and tell Alabama. They beat Bama. Then they beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. We could look at to see our first 2-loss SEC champ team. Now, Auburn does control their own destiny. Now, will they get it done against Alabama? They've done it against the last 2 years in Jordan-Hare Stadium at Auburn. I don't know if Auburn can do it. I think Bo Nix looks like Patrick Mahomes out there. But we don't. It's Bo Nix. There's two sides of Bo Nix where he looks like Patrick Mahomes. He acts like Patrick Mahomes. He plays like Patrick Mahomes. Or there's a side of him where he's throwing interceptions. We'll see in a couple weeks. We'll see how Auburn does handle the insane environment of A&M. That's going to be a pretty big game. Super excited about that. Brigham Young University ranked them number 15. BYU. The loss of Zach Wilson last season was huge, but they're clearly bouncing back. Only a 2-loss team. Very proud of BYU. Mississippi. Ole Miss. Ole Miss has the Heisman favorite, probably right now, Matt Corral. He did hurt himself last game, which caused him the loss, but I'm very proud of Ole Miss. I think Lane Kiffin's doing an unbelievable job down there. He's building a program down there. And that Tennessee win, oh my God, that was so funny. Just watching a ping pong ball or golf ball, I think it was, and thrown on Lane Kiffin. And so was a mustard. I mean, that was so funny. The mustard can. I mean, who brings a mustard bottle into a football game. That's just makes sense. You putting on their hot dogs. Miss State at 17. Now, when I first saw this, I was like, what the hell? I haven't really been paying attention to Mississippi State Bulldogs football, but they did just beat Kentucky. That was a huge one. They just beat the number 18 team in Kentucky. Kentucky has played bonkers this season, but they lost. I mean, they got destroyed by Bama. They lost to Kentucky. I mean, they won Kentucky, sorry. They lost to LSU. They lost to Memphis. So what's so hype about this mistake? I just think that so many teams are getting upset with that. You have to take all these like good teams out of the top 25, and they had a slump Miss State in there. Kentucky at 18. The reason why they're not ranked above Miss State is because they lost last weekend. Kentucky, what an underdog this story. They beat Florida. They're getting huge matchups. Love what Kentucky's doing. Kentucky, what a program Mark Stoops has brought to that program. I think this is like his 5th or 6th year. Mark Stoops, what a program. Love it, what he's doing. NC State is so bipolar. I think they're the most bipolar team in college football because on a certain weekend they look amazing, like a top 10 team, or they look absolutely garbage. I mean, we saw what they did last week against Miami. Absolutely garbage. But then we saw what they did against Boston College. Absolutely amazing. So what is like going on with this NC State team? Also, former MVP alum on that team, CJ Raleigh. Shout out to him. Minnesota, row the boat, baby. So PJ Flake in Minnesota. Now, last season was a big disappointment in Minnesota Golden Gophers football, but they did just beat Maryland, Nebraska, and Purdue. 3 great wins there, and Northwestern. So I like what Minnesota's doing these past month of college football. Wisconsin. I mean, they're also bipolar too because they look garbage on a certain weekend. I mean, they just beat Iowa for God's sake, the number 6 team at the time in Iowa, and now they're not dropped to 19. But they can also lose to Penn State. And they can also lose to Notre Dame, and Michigan. So I don't know. Wisconsin's a jump around team. They're just a very interesting team. Iowa. I mean, what a drop off for Iowa. I mean, they were ranked in the top 3 a couple weeks ago, and then they lost a couple quick ones. They lost against Wisconsin, and now they're bumped up to 22. I mean, what a disappointment for Iowa. Fresno State. Oh my God. Never expected to see Fresno State, San Diego State, the 23 and the 22 here. I mean, Fresno State is 7-2. I mean, I remember watching them, I'm being honest with you, doing some research right before this. They had a huge win over San Diego State a couple weeks ago, so I guess that's why Fresno is ranked ahead of them. They beat Nevada, but Hawaii did beat them a month ago. So Fresno State, San Diego State, 2 interesting teams. And Pittsburgh was undefeated a couple weeks ago, but they fumbled the bag. And they just looked the same, to be honest with you. We thought that Pitt could have been the Clemson this year, but we all know and certainly well that Pitt is just another mediocre ACC team. All right, y'all. Thank you all for joining me on this episode of the podcast. Hope we can get future podcasts on in the future, depending on my schedule. Also, edits should be coming out soon. More edits. I've been doing a lot of work on the Instagram, Fast Productions, Productions. So go follow the Instagram. Posted 2 videos the other day. So, and also go follow All Gator Nation on Instagram where we do Gator stuff. TikTok, Ethan.Bass15. Been posting a lot of TikTok about my college football takes. So make sure to go follow that. Thank you all for joining me on this episode of the podcast. Go enjoy your college football weekend. College basketball is up soon. Let's go. Have a good week.